I was standing in the middle of that boutique, surrounded by designer handbags and silk dresses that cost more than most people make in a year, and all I could hear was laughter. Cold, cutting laughter. The store manager was on her phone calling security, telling them there was a situation that needed handling. Other customers had their phones out, recording, whispering to each other like I was some kind of spectacle. And me, I was just trying to buy a dress. What none of them knew, what not a single person in that room could have possibly imagined, was that earlier that morning I had become one of the wealthiest women in this entire country. Stay with me until the end, because what happens next will restore your faith in karma. And if you've ever been judged unfairly, this story is for you. Hit that subscribe button, you won't regret it. Let me back up and tell you who I really am. My name is Diane, and up until that Tuesday morning, I was just a regular person living a regular life. I'm 34 years old, and I work as a social worker at a community shelter on the east side of the city. It's not glamorous work. Most days, I'm helping homeless families find temporary housing, connecting people with job programs, or just listening to someone who needs to be heard. The pay isn't great, but I never minded. I chose this work because it mattered to me, because I knew what it felt like to need help and not have anywhere to turn. I lived in a small one-bedroom apartment with radiators that clanked all night and neighbors who played music too loud. My wardrobe consisted mostly of thrift store finds and hand-me-downs. I took the bus everywhere because I never owned a car, but I had my dignity, I had my education, and I had a purpose. That was enough for me. I never needed luxury. I never chased wealth. Honestly, I was content. Now, there's something you need to know about my family history. I had an aunt named Margaret, who I barely knew growing up. She was my father's older sister, and from what little I understood, she had built some kind of massive pharmaceutical business decades ago. My father and Margaret had a falling out before I was even born, something about family money and pride and old wounds that never healed. I met her maybe twice in my entire life, both times at distant family funerals where we exchanged polite nods and nothing more. She was this mysterious, wealthy woman who existed somewhere in the background of my family tree. But she wasn't part of my life. Not really. That Tuesday started like any other. I woke up at 6, made instant coffee, got dressed in my usual work clothes, and was heading out the door when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. The voice on the other end introduced himself as Robert Wellington, attorney at law, representing the estate of Margaret Catherine Morrison. My aunt. He told me she had passed away 3 days earlier, peacefully in her sleep. And then he said something that made my knees weak. Ms. Diane, you are the sole beneficiary of your aunt's estate. The total value is approximately $4.7 billion. I actually laughed. I thought it was a scam, one of those calls where they try to get your bank information. But Mr. Wellington was patient. He explained that Margaret had no children, no spouse, and had specifically named me in her will updated just 6 months prior. She left me everything: the pharmaceutical company shares, the real estate holdings, the investment portfolios, the cash assets. Everything. But there was a process: legal paperwork, court filings, asset transfers. Nothing would be accessible for at least 48 hours, maybe longer. I sat down on my apartment floor and just stared at the wall. $4.7 billion. I couldn't even wrap my mind around that number. It didn't feel real. I kept waiting to wake up, for someone to call back and say there had been a mistake. But the lawyer sent me documents, official papers with legal stamps and signatures. It was real. My entire life had just changed, and I hadn't even finished my morning coffee. But here's the thing, I still went to work that day. I still showed up for my shift at the shelter because people were counting on me. I still wore my second-hand cardigan and took the same bus I always took. Nobody knew. I hadn't told anyone yet because I was still processing it myself. And honestly, I didn't feel any different. The money wasn't in my account. I couldn't touch it. So, in every practical sense, I was still just Diane, the social worker who made $38,000 a year. After my shift ended that evening, I decided to walk through the upscale shopping district downtown. It was something I rarely did because, let's be honest, those stores were never meant for people like me. But that day felt different. I had this secret sitting in my chest, this knowledge that my entire world was about to transform, and I just wanted to feel something. I wanted to look around, to imagine what my new life might look like. I found myself standing outside a boutique called Laurent and Company. Floor-to-ceiling windows displayed gorgeous evening gowns and designer suits. I'd walked past this place 100 times and never dared to go inside. But that evening I thought, why not? Maybe I could buy myself one nice dress, just one, to celebrate privately, to mark this impossible day. The moment I stepped through the door, I felt it, the shift in atmosphere. The boutique was beautiful, all marble floors and crystal chandeliers, soft classical music playing in the background. And it was busy. Well-dressed women browsed the racks, sales associates hovered attentively. But when I walked in, everything changed. A woman behind the counter, her name tag read Patricia Manager, looked up and her expression went from professional to cold in an instant. She watched me like I was something dangerous, something that didn't belong. I tried to ignore it. I walked slowly along a rack of dresses, admiring the fabrics, the craftsmanship. I wasn't touching anything disrespectfully. I wasn't causing any trouble. I was just looking. But within minutes, a young sales associate, this blonde woman named Bethany, appeared at my elbow. She didn't offer to help me. She just followed me, step for step, like a shadow, like I was a shoplifter. Other customers started to notice. I could feel their stares, hear their whispers. One woman actually clutched her purse tighter when I walked past her. My face burned with embarrassment, but I kept my head up. I had every right to be there. I picked up a price tag on a deep blue evening gown. $12,000. I could feel Bethany tense behind me. Then Patricia appeared. She had this tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Excuse me," she said, her voice dripping with false politeness. "Are you sure you're in the right store? Our pieces start at $5,000. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the mall across town." The other customers were watching now. Some were smiling. A few were recording on their phones. I felt my throat tighten, but I kept my voice steady. "I'm just browsing, thank you." Patricia's smile vanished. "Ma'am, I don't think you understand. This is an exclusive boutique. We cater to a specific clientele. I really don't think—" "I understand perfectly," I said quietly, "and I have every right to be here." That's when Bethany stepped forward and actually took the dress out of my hands. "This gown is $12,000, she said loudly, like she was performing for the crowd. "You need to leave now." I felt something break inside me. Not anger exactly, just this deep, aching sadness. Because I realized this had nothing to do with whether I could afford that dress. This was about what I looked like, how I was dressed, the color of my skin. They had decided I didn't belong before I'd even opened my mouth. "I'm calling security," Patricia announced, pulling out her phone. "We have a suspicious individual refusing to leave the premises." The humiliation was complete. People were definitely recording now. Someone laughed. I stood there, frozen, feeling smaller than I'd ever felt in my life. And then the security guard arrived. His name tag said Harold. He was an older black man, probably in his 60s, and when he looked at me, I saw something in his eyes. Hesitation, maybe recognition, like he'd been in my shoes before. "Ma'am," he said gently, "I'm going to have to ask you to come with me." That's when my phone rang. The sound cut through the tension like a knife. I pulled it out with shaking hands, saw Mr. Wellington's name on the screen, and answered without thinking. "Miss Diane," his voice came through clearly, loudly. "I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. I just wanted to confirm that we're processing the estate transfer. The 4.7 billion should be accessible by Thursday morning. Also, I was reviewing the asset list and noticed that Laurent and Company boutique chain is among the retail properties you now own, 17 locations nationwide. Did you want to keep those in your portfolio or would you prefer to liquidate? The boutique went completely silent. Every sound, every whisper, every breath just stopped. I watched Patricia's face drain of all colour. Bethany took a step back. The customers who'd been recording slowly lowered their phones. Harold's eyes went wide. "I'll call you back," I said quietly, and ended the call. I took a breath and turned to face Patricia. My hands weren't shaking anymore. "You were saying something about me leaving?" Patricia opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She looked like she might actually faint. We didn't know," Bethany stammered. "No," I said, my voice calm and clear. "You didn't know. You didn't know anything about me. You didn't ask. You just looked at me and decided I wasn't worthy of basic respect. You decided I didn't belong in a store that, as it turns out, I own." One of the customers who'd been recording suddenly rushed forward. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean anything by it. I think you're beautiful. Can I get a picture with you?" The others started murmuring, trying to distance themselves from Patricia, suddenly acting like they'd been on my side all along. But I wasn't interested in their sudden change of heart. I looked at Patricia, who was now trembling. "I want corporate contact information," I said. "All of it. And I want documentation of exactly what happened here today." "Please," Patricia whispered, tears actually forming in her eyes. "Please, I have 3 kids. I need this job. I made a mistake. I'm so sorry." I could have destroyed her right there. I could have screamed, could have gloated, could have made a scene that would have gone viral by morning. But you know what? That's not who I am. Money didn't change that. So I took a breath and spoke clearly. "You're not losing your job because I'm wealthy now," I said. "You're losing it because you forgot basic human decency, because you treated another person as less than human based on assumptions. That's not a mistake. That's a choice you made, and there are consequences for choices." I turned to Harold, the security guard who'd shown hesitation, who'd looked at me with kindness even when he was being pressured. "Harold, how long have you worked security?" He cleared his throat, surprised. 15 years, Mum." "How would you like to be the new head of security operations for all 17 Laurent and Company?" "Locations, substantial raise, full benefits, and your job will be to make sure what happened to me today never happens to anyone else." His eyes filled with tears. "Yes, Mum, it would be an honor." I picked up the blue dress, the $12,000 one that had started this whole thing. "I'll take this," I said calmly. "Please have it wrapped." As I wrote the check, my hands steady now, an elderly woman approached me. Unlike the others, she wasn't gushing or making excuses. She just looked sad. "I'm ashamed," she said quietly. "I judged you too. I'm sorry, truly." And I could tell she meant it. I nodded. "Thank you for saying that. It takes courage." I left that boutique with my head high, carrying that dress, while Patricia sobbed behind the counter and customers scrambled to delete their videos. In the days that followed, everything changed. The story went viral anyway. Someone had posted their video before deleting it, and suddenly I was everywhere. The news wanted interviews. Social media exploded with commentary. Patricia issued a public apology video that felt hollow and scripted, all tears and excuses. But I didn't engage with the circus. I had more important things to do, because here's what that money really meant to me. It meant I could finally do the work I'd always dreamed of doing, but never had the resources for. Within a month, I'd opened 3 job training centers in underserved communities. I created a scholarship fund for kids who grew up like I did, who chose service careers over high-paying jobs. I kept working at the shelter part-time because that work still mattered to me. It still fed my soul in ways money never could. And that boutique incident, It sparked something bigger than me: national conversations about discrimination, about unconscious bias, about how we treat people based on appearance. I used my platform to amplify those conversations, to share stories of others who'd experienced what I had. So here's what I learned from all of this. Money didn't change who I was, it just revealed who everyone else was. It showed me who would stand by their principles and who would crumble the moment the power dynamic shifted. It taught me that respect should never be conditional on someone's bank account or appearance. That morning, when I got that phone call, I became a billionaire. But that evening, in that boutique, I remembered something far more valuable. I remembered my worth. Not the dollar amount attached to my name, but my inherent worth as a human being. And no amount of money can buy that. You either recognize it in yourself and others, or you don't. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment telling me how you would have handled this situation. And remember, your value isn't determined by your bank account, your clothes, or what anyone else thinks of you. It's determined by how you treat others and how you carry yourself through this world. Subscribe for more stories that matter. See you in the next one.